Andrew is a member of the powerful Foreign Affairs Committee and Vice Chair of the All-Party Parliamentary Group for Sri Lanka. He has consistently called for peace and reconciliation for all the people of Sri Lanka and is working hard to bring communities together in the UK, and we sincerely hope he will revisit Sri Lanka in 2016. He is a passionate and advocate of Commonwealth of Nations and is one of the key people behind the drive to encourage every British institution to fly the Commonwealth flag on the Commonwealth Day. Andrew sits on several party parliamentary groups representing Commonwealth nations. He renewed his call for reconciliation in Sri Lanka when he addressed the first ever Commonwealth service held at St Albans Church in Romford in the London Borough of Havering a few years ago. He received the Commonwealth Award from the people of Havering for work tirelessly on Commonwealth issues and is deeply loyal to Her Majesty the Queen. He's a compassionate man and has backed a number of charities, especially the work for autism in Romford. He's a powerful voice for the Commonwealth in the Palace of Westminster, and we thank him for actively supporting the work of the Conservative Friends of Sri Lanka. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together and give a very warm welcome to Andrew Rosindell.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. John, I have to say that was probably the most wonderful introduction I've ever had as a Member of Parliament. And I'd just like to say what a privilege it is for me to be able to host the Conservative Friends of Sri Lanka here in the Palace of Westminster, but most importantly, here in the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association room. So we're here in the CPA room of the British Parliament, in the mother of parliaments. And I welcome each and every one of you this evening to this reception because there is a cherished link between the people of the United Kingdom and the people of Sri Lanka. We share so much in common: our history and heritage, our love of the Commonwealth. We have worked together over so many years, and yet, that link, I think, has been weakened in recent years. And I think tonight we should all leave here and resolve to fight to rebuild that strengthened relationship that historically we've always had. Sri Lanka is a wonderful country. The people of Sri Lanka are wonderful people. And I remember, going back 25 years, I'm a member of the Westminster Foundation for Democracy, a board member representing the Conservative Party. And when the Westminster Foundation was founded, I was asked, would I host a delegation from Sri Lanka to my constituency? Now, I wasn't even an MP then, but they still asked me to do that. And I remember a wonderful group of young people from the UNP, which is our sister party in Sri Lanka, and they came to my constituency. That was over 20 years ago. And it's meeting those young people, learning about Sri Lanka, that first gave me that interest in your country. And I want, now I'm in Parliament, together with my very good friend Matthew, we are in Parliament, we want to ensure that we rebuild and strengthen that relationship with the people of Sri Lanka. We also want to ensure that the Commonwealth has a much greater role to play in the future. I regret the fact that the Commonwealth has perhaps not had the prominence it deserves. We're having a big debate at the moment, and it's not going to be a speech about Europe this evening, but we're having a big debate about that subject. And we all want to see good relations with our neighbours, but actually we also want to see relations with countries with whom we have a long-standing historical relationship with. And so I want to see the Commonwealth become an organisation that can broaden out for trade and greater cooperation in a whole range of areas. And whatever the result of our referendum on Europe, we, in the United Kingdom should be resolute in our determination to make the Commonwealth into something more crucial for our futures, because I think it's in all of our interests to make sure that happens. And Sri Lanka is pivotal as part of the family of Commonwealth nations. And so in 2011, when I was invited to go to Sri Lanka, I was absolutely thrilled to be given that opportunity and spent 10 days visiting every part of your country, meeting the people, understanding the history and the culture, the way of life of the people of Sri Lanka, and even sampling the food. And for those of you who know me, I'm not into spicy food too much, but even I thought the cuisine in Sri Lanka was superb. And I have to say that from that moment onwards, I fell in love with Sri Lanka and the Sri Lankan people. And I want to see progress made. And I know that with a new government in Sri Lanka, with reconciliation, I hope, happening, trade and cooperation should be pivotal to this, bringing Sri Lanka into the wider community, the global community, putting aside whatever has happened before, ensuring that justice is done for those who feel aggrieved, that taking the country forward into a brighter future is what we should all be working to achieve. And I also want to say that Sri Lankans in the UK are magnificent citizens, or subjects of the Queen, I should say subjects. They are magnificent members of the British community here in the United Kingdom. I can think of so many people in my constituency who are of Sri Lankan origin, who contribute in all sorts of ways, and there's no greater example of that than my very good friend Mr. Korea here, who is a teacher at the only all-girls school in my constituency. But what a wonderful job he does, and I see the passion he shows. But not only that, the passion for everything he does, and that all of you do in your different respective careers, but also your loyalty to this country, your passion, not just for Sri Lanka, but for Britain, and for all things British, and your loyalty to Queen and country. And that, to me, is the most important thing. It overrides any differences we may have, whether cultural, religious, political. Loyalty to Queen and country has to be the root of what unites us together as citizens or subjects and residents of this country. And so I know that the people of Sri Lanka, people of Sri Lankan origin, who now live in the United Kingdom, are the most loyal and dedicated people that I've met, and I thank you for that. But let me say a few words about the Conservative Friends of Sri Lanka. There aren't many organisations that can boast the support that the Conservative Friends of Sri Lanka has generated in recent years, and I'm looking around the room at all the people that work so hard. It'd be wrong to single anybody out, but I'm staring at some of the people that I know have worked very hard. I will single out Lionel, because he really is a wonderful man. Truly wonderful. You are the president. So, yeah. So Lionel is the president. He's a wonderful man. But not only that, you're promoting Sri Lanka, which is absolutely right, because you have origins from Sri Lanka, and you love your country as you love the UK. But you're also, I have to say, a big thank you to you all, you're promoting conservatism. And that is something that also unites us together. Having won our election this year, and I know that all of you worked very hard to help us win that election, a big thank you for everything you did to make sure that we won that crucial election. Just imagine had we lost the election and we'd had a Labour, SNP, Plaid Cymru, left-wing mishmash running our country today. How disastrous that would have been. And there was no greater, in my view, no greater victory of that evening than the one in Hendon. Matthew. Not only did you prove to all of your colleagues that actually you're a man that could not only win but win big, you actually confounded all of your critics and the pundits that said that Hendon would be lost. You proved them wrong, and I'm delighted that you did. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for everything you do. Thank you for everything you're going to continue to do for our great party and for our great nation, and to promote the importance of British-Sri Lankan friendship, which must be enduring for many, many more years to come, if not forever. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm proud to host this evening. I'm sorry to say that Lord Sheikh is not yet with us. I know he's on his way when all the divisions are finished. Well, actually, he might even walk in a moment, because the divisions have finished. Lady Sheikh, of course, is here. So Lord Sheikh is coming to join us in a few moments, and he's going to give you the main keynote speech this evening. I'm just the warm-up act. But before Lord Sheikh arrives, I would like to say, Matthew, it's wonderful to see you this evening. Matthew, I wonder if you'd like to say a few words.
Ladies and gentlemen, Matthew Offord. Ladies and gentlemen, it really is a great pleasure to be here, not only tonight, but indeed in this Parliament, as Andrew has already mentioned. But I would attribute my victory to the people of my constituency. Some people who not only have lived in the Hendon constituency, but some people have moved away to places like Surrey, who no longer live in the Hendon constituency, but indeed have family and friends there. And I'm very grateful to them and their support over the years. Back in 2010, I was fortunate enough to visit Sri Lanka. And I have one constituent who emails me regularly, and he even emailed me today to talk about certain issues that he has of concern. And during my whole visit, he was on my shoulder, speaking into my ear and saying to me, he didn't like this, he didn't like that. And I visited the country, and I saw for myself where there has been progress following the end of the conflict. And everything he said to me was always, anything that I ever bring to you, you always say, but the violence has ended and we mustn't go back. And I fundamentally believe that. I think it is exceptional, fundamental to all that we believe, and most of all, progress, that the violence has ended and we are moving forward. And the country certainly is. He also said to me, my constituent, well, I'm sure you only went to those places where the government decided they would take you. And he was wrong. We went to Keynote. I wanted to go and see where the mines were being cleared, so people were able to return to their land. I wanted to see where the beaches were being cleared, so fishermen were able to return to the sea and to provide an income for their families. And economic development is one of the most important issues in bringing any country together following any kind of conflict. And we've seen that very much in Northern Ireland, that still has its own problems. But in regards to the economy, they have moved forward, and the violence has not returned, even though there has been sporadic incidences. So I said to him, we must continue with that kind of economic process, and that will lead to reconciliation. And he said, well, it's only reconciliation for some people. That hasn't been my experience. I met the leader of the TNA, who said what they wanted was not only greater transport, but also access to employment. He didn't say anything about the past. He was looking forward. He was looking at reconciliation. And I was really proud of that. I was really proud that we had the opportunity to visit him, to meet him. And I have to say, the government didn't want us to meet him, but we did. Very much proving that we saw all sides of the island, all sides of the debate, and at times all sides of the previous conflict. But Sri Lanka has moved on. And again, I was very pleased when the Prime Minister, David Cameron, announced that he was going to go to Sri Lanka with Chogam. And again, I was criticised in my constituency. People said, well, he shouldn't go to Chogam. He should refuse to do so. Now, I was very annoyed with that view because it was incorrect. The decision to go to Chogam was something that Gordon Brown took, a decision that he took many years ago, for the right reasons. And imagine if the Prime Minister had decided not to go to Sri Lanka. He would have left Prince Charles alone on the island with officials and others. And I think that would have sent a very damaging message about not only the British government and the British monarchy, but also about our relationship with Sri Lanka. And I think that was a very, very wrong thing to do so. And I was very pleased when he visited all parts of the island. And there was no places that he couldn't go. And he certainly came back with a view. And he did speak about an inquiry. And there are views upon how that inquiry should be conducted. But other countries, Bangladesh is one. I've mentioned Northern Ireland. Different countries have had conflicts over the years. And they've come through them. And they have had inquiries. Do I see a mouse? Oh! You get used to that in the house. And they have come through them, as indeed Sri Lanka will. I'd have to say, one thing that struck me about Sri Lanka is the extraordinary potential the country holds. We met individuals within the British Embassy who spoke about issues including human rights. We wanted to speak about economic development and trade, links between our two countries, that we can take the country forward, not only economically, but also through the different communities that the country does contain. And that will only happen to ensure a legacy of prosperity and success. And I'm very pleased that we made a very small difference in part of that. So Sri Lanka now has real opportunities. I visited Hatmantota, the port there that's being constructed. This means it can be a gateway to the east and a gateway to the rest of the world. There are huge opportunities that we need to work together to ensure rehabilitation and indeed a rebuilding of the whole of the country. The eastern parts of the country are magnificent. And as someone who scuba dives, I very much want to visit HMS Hermes, our largest aircraft carrier that's actually sunk in the Second World War. And people still go and visit there because there's the opportunity to visit and tourism that hasn't been in previous years. But now that time has come about. And that, like Andrew says, I am indeed very grateful to the work of John and Mal and everyone else. Lionel, sorry Lionel. Lost you. There you are. Sorry, Lionel. You're usually behind the camera. I am very grateful for the things that you've done for me on a personal basis. I have to say that my office were very jealous when I said that I visited and met the Sri Lankan cricket team, particularly when they were so successful. But I'm grateful for all the work you've undertaken with me personally and indeed the Conservative Friends of Sri Lanka.
Thank you.
Sri Lanka, as I said, is a great country. It continues to have a great future. And I'm looking forward to hearing what Lord Sheikh has to say, the relationship between our government and the government of Sri Lanka going forward. And there has been a change of leadership, which I was told that will never happen. Mr. Rajapaksa will always be in office. We've seen that democracy works. Some people come, and indeed on occasion, I think in 1997, some of us also go. But that is politics, and that also shows that it's a vibrant democracy in the country, that people have ideas, people vote upon those ideas, and people make the change they want to see. And I look forward to a great future for the country, and indeed I look forward to visiting again in the future. So I'd like to say thank you to the Conservative Friends of Sri Lanka, and indeed I will pass on now to my better, indeed, Lord Sheikh.
Lord Sheikh, ladies and gentlemen, parliamentarians, Lord Sheikh is a businessman and his business interests relate to insurance, financial services and properties. He's actively promoted that UK should accelerate bilateral trade with overseas countries, and in December 2014 he tabled and led on a debate in the House of Lords to promote UK's trade with Sri Lanka. He's a great supporter of Sri Lanka. He has recently visited Ethiopia to look at business opportunities, and last week he spoke at a conference where ministerial and trade delegates from the country were present. Over the last few weeks, he has met the King of Asante region in Ghana and the Emir of Kano, the province of Nigeria, to talk about matters of trade. About 2 months ago, he spoke at a major trade conference where the Prime Minister of Uganda and other ministers were present, and he had discussions with them. On 5th of November, he has tabled a debate in the House of Lords on the subject of bilateral trade between UK and African countries. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together and a very warm welcome to Lord Sheikh.
Honourable members of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Thank you very much indeed, Rajan, John Rajan Yuk, to give you his full name. For that introduction, you certainly have done your homework on me, Rajan. No, I mean, you embarrass me by saying these things. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been asked by Rajan to speak of trade between Sri Lanka and United Kingdom. And as Rajan has said, I'm a businessman. My business interests relate to properties, insurance services, and a number of other projects. Now, I'm actively involved in promoting more trade with the United Kingdom and overseas countries. Ladies and gentlemen, my friends on the top table, I would like to say that I'm a friend of Sri Lanka for several years, and I visited Sri Lanka on 2 occasions. I was until recently a vice chairman of the all-party group on Sri Lanka, and I beg your pardon, not all-party group. Yes, it was all-party group. It was I belong to so many organizations, I've got to think sometimes. I was until recently a vice chairman of the all-party group on Sri Lanka, and I have supported conservative friends of Sri Lanka, my friends. Amal, I spoke to him this morning, and Rajan, and Doctor as well, and we are in constant discussions. Unfortunately, I couldn't attend the Conservative Party conference because I was in Ethiopia at that time, but I'm sure, my friends, that it was a good event. Ladies and gentlemen, the observation I have made during my consultation, during my discussions with our friends here, and of course my visits to Sri Lanka, have reinforced my feeling that Sri Lanka is and should be regarded as one of our most important bilateral trading partners. Trading links between UK and Sri Lanka date back to colonial times. Both our political and economic ties have worn extremely well for over 200 years. Of course, Sri Lanka was called Ceylon, but I understand the tea is still called Ceylon tea. Is that right? Because that's the original tea, because the British, of course, introduced tea to Sri Lanka. Is that right? Yeah. Yes. So today, Sri Lanka is a major emerging economy in South Asia. It's a market of over 20 million people, but its location is such that if you use Sri Lanka as a platform, you can, in fact, reach over 1.6 billion people. Because logistically, it's a trading and a shipment hub for the region. I was talking to Rajan the other day, and I said to him about Trichinomalee. I visited Trichinomalee. It's a marvelous port. A lot of opportunities to develop the deep sea port, which is of course used by the British during the Second World War. So it's a shipment hub for that region. So over the past decade, Sri Lanka's gross domestic product has grown at an overall rate of 6.4%. It grew by 7.4% in 2014. It was up slightly from 7.2% in 2013. So if you look at growth of 7%, that's really is to be appreciated. Sri Lanka is therefore one of the fastest growing economies in the region, and we in the United Kingdom should benefit from growth in the country. Sri Lanka at the moment has a per capita income of $3,500 per person. The Sri Lankan government aims to increase this to $4,000 per capita by 2016. It's classed by World Bank as a lower middle class country, and the middle class in Sri Lanka is growing, which presents us and other people who want to invest in Sri Lanka more opportunities. The middle class is growing. In short, Sri Lanka undoubtedly holds massive potential for UK investors. We must acknowledge that for nearly 3 decades, Sri Lanka was torn apart by a civil war. This thankfully came to an end in 2009. And when I went there, I saw that last time the security was very lax in Sri Lanka. Prior to that, there was strict security. So you could see the changes which have occurred since the insurgency has stopped. I believe that it is now time for the Sri Lankan diaspora, which includes both the Sinhalese and Tamils, to look at establishing businesses and professional services in the country. The diaspora, I believe, has the resources and expertise, and they must think seriously of going to the country of the region. They can keep their contact here. Take your expertise, take your resources, take your money, and I'm sure that there will be excellent opportunities for diaspora to go back and help out the country and of course make money for themselves. In 2014, UK exported to Sri Lanka goods worth 165 million pounds. 165 million pounds is what we exported to Sri Lanka last year. So we are one of the Sri Lanka's closest business partners for higher educational and professional training, as well as for partnership in the technology sector. I'm a great supporter of British Council because I remember when I came to this country, I stayed with British Council residents. And one of the things I was most impressed by, how well is British Council doing in Sri Lanka. The British Council library in Sri Lanka is absolutely first-class library. I don't know whether any of you been to see the library, but must commend British Council on the excellent services they provide in Sri Lanka. These are vital skills. So we are one of Sri Lanka's closest partners for higher education professional training, as well as we can be their partners in the technology sector and can accelerate our activities with regard to technology sector. So these are vital skills that will help Sri Lanka to build and strengthen its economy in the long term and anchor UK as a key partner in trading. Now the Millennium, you know, they provide technology and absolutely first class, and London Stock Exchange has invested in Millennium, and they provide absolutely first class IT technology to, in fact, not only Sri Lanka but other countries as well. There are already over 100 British companies with operations in Sri Lanka that cross a wide range of sectors. These companies include HSBC, GlaxoSmithKline, Rolls-Royce, and Marks and Spencer. In fact, last time I was there, I met about 20 business leaders. The High Commissioner there called a meeting of these business leaders, and they were all saying nice things about Sri Lanka. So when I was in Sri Lanka, I was able to visit the Brandix factory near Colombo, which makes garments for Marks and Spencers. And I found the operation to be very eco-friendly, with excellent working conditions, which were commended by all. I have spoken on this point in the House of Lords. In fact, the managing director of Brandix telephoned Lady Sheikh to say, I read in Hansard what Lord Sheikh said about our factory. Can we quote him in our marketing literature? So people overseas do read what's being said in the Commons as well as the Lords, and they do look at what the Hansard says. So, ladies and gentlemen, apart from historical ties and the strong Sri Lankan economy and business basis, there are many other reasons for us to promote and further bilateral trade. English is, of course, widely spoken across the country, providing many Western countries with easy means of communication and potential workers. The literacy rate now stands at an average of 92%. Everywhere I went, most Sri Lankans could speak English. Something good about the education system in Sri Lanka. With literacy at 92%, that's to be commended. Another thing I want to talk about is commercial law in Sri Lanka. Is based on the principles of English commercial law and English statutes. offering many companies a legal framework that will already be familiar with us. And I was brought up in Uganda, and I remember after Uganda got independence, the constitution of Uganda was actually drafted by a Sri Lankan lawyer. So they make very good lawyers, amongst other things. So Sri Lanka is one of the highest rated countries in South Asia in the World Bank's ranking for ease of doing business. So ease of doing business, your rank is one of the best place to do business. And Sri Lanka also has free trade agreements in place with India, Bangladesh, and Pakistan. India, Bangladesh, and Pakistan. Another consideration is infrastructure. Following the end of the Civil War, Sri Lanka is seeing a rapid and widespread of infrastructure development. Connectivity is being vastly improved through several road projects linking urban and rural communities. So the roads are getting better, which of course means that the government is keen to expand and improve the infrastructure, and there are opportunities for us, United Kingdom, for us to get involved in. There is also increase in demand for greater expansion in leisure and tourism sectors, including hotel and retail. This, I believe, presents us with great opportunities, and I think at one time there were nearly 1 million British people going to Sri Lanka. Is that right, Amal?
Well, in total, I think the whole tourist industry has about 2 million people coming to Sri Lanka now. I don't know about Sri Lanka. I think Britain has the largest out of Europe.
Large, so really, but there are opportunities there when you look around for tourism, really, hotels, leisure complexes. So that's again something to be looked into. Now, another key area for further investment is education. We must expand even further our role in providing and investing in higher education and skills training, helping Sri Lanka's workforce to fill the skills gap and become more responsive to the needs of the global markets. Now, I read President Sirisena's speech. Amal sent me his speech, you remember, Amal? And he made this speech on the 30th of September. And what the President has said, that he would like to transform the youth to a totally skilled workforce to succeed in the 21st century knowledge-based work. So really, there are opportunities for us to get involved in training of the workforce. But that's what the President has said. He'd like to see more young people being skilled, to be trained properly. So I believe we could do more to build university contacts and become involved in creating colleges of excellence, maybe setting up MBA colleges, undoubtedly, because as the economy expands, they need more skilled people. Now, I have close connections with the University of Hertfordshire in one of their advisors, so I'm very pleased to say that I was instrumental in arranging to set up a school of nursing in Sri Lanka, in Colombo actually, so the university set this up and I was instrumental in this to happen. And I would like a request to Conservative Friends of Sri Lanka to perhaps arrange a visit to Sri Lanka, and amongst other things, to tell us about good things which are happening in Sri Lanka, and also to see opportunities for more bilateral trade. And I would like also the Sri Lankan High Commission in London to actively promote the trade opportunities in their country. So I think that Sri Lankan High Commissioner now, I think that somebody, I'm not so sure who is in place at the moment, but whenever the High Commissioner is appointed, then I'm sure. I've just been to Ethiopia, and our High Commissioner in Addis Ababa does an excellent job to promote trade between Ethiopia and United Kingdom. So I think that perhaps the Sri Lankan High Commissioner, I'm sure, will be doing the same. We should also look at trade mission from UK to come to Sri Lanka, and also trade mission from Sri Lanka to come here. Perhaps, Amal, you can take a lead on this. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the future potential for Sri Lanka is huge, and I'm sure that with expansion of trade and with now what is happening, people-to-people contact, I'm sure that the sky is the limit. Now, finally, I'm pleased to say that a resolution was achieved at the UN Human Rights Council on 1st of October 2015, and Britain has played a role to achieve the outcome. I don't know whether you discussed this or not earlier on, because I missed the first session. Amal, perhaps you can tell us more about this, because I hope that there will be participation by Commonwealth lawyers in making the progress, and Sri Lanka will reform its domestic laws. So I'm pleased that obviously things are progressing well with regard to reconciliation, particularly with President Sri Lanka now. And obviously his ideas are certainly to bring communities together. But from my point of view, as I've been asked to take about trade, I think the opportunities are there, and I think we should grab the opportunities. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Sheikh. I'm sorry, I can't speak properly today, but I'll try and do my best. We have listened to 3 very good speeches, and I'm not going to say much about the other 2 speakers, about whom you have said a lot more. And Andrew, thank you very much for getting us these walls, and your staff, mainly Osman Dervish, and also Ivan, for helping us to get this place sorted out today. And I must say a few more words about Matthew Offord, about whom you haven't heard very much before. Matthew Offord is a distinguished member of Parliament for Hendon, first elected to the Hendon constituency in 2010. Hendon is the 8th most marginal seat, or was, in the country. Matthew secured a hugely significant win for the Conservatives in Hendon, turning his 2010 majority of just 106 to a respectable 3,700. Apart from that, besides his political work, Matthew is a keen sailor. Having lived in Cornwall, he was elected a Fellow of the Royal Geographical Society in 2005. Matthew has travelled extensively and is no stranger to Sri Lanka, as you heard. He's been to most parts of Sri Lanka. And Matthew is the Parliamentary Private Secretary to